All right, folks. So yesterday, 139 candidates were nominated as our political parties prepare for the general elections, which are about 17 days away. Now, did the parties nominate their best candidates? I suspect they did. And are their candidates the result of a sound leadership succession plan? As we examine the trends of Jamaica's leadership structure, we've invited Professor of Political and Social Psychology at UA-Mona, Dr. Christopher Charles, to give us his views and opinions on this. Morning, sir. Welcome to Smile Jamaica. It's morning time.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Haven't seen you for a little while. Are we talking about just leadership succession here? Or are we talking about what the leaders do and that succession, how should I say it, that it is followed the way they want to?
I don't know that the major political parties selecting candidates to run in the general election is leadership succession. What I do know is candidate selection, where the parties just feel their candidates that they think can win. Leadership succession requires reform in the parties where a certain amount of women and young people are repeatedly put up for office. And so you have to institutionalize these things. I don't know that in the political parties, the major ones that is, that you have leadership succession planning.
You don't know that that happens, is what you're saying?
No, because the acrimony and bitterness that normally obtains after a leader resigns or steps down or dies, suggests that the party doesn't have formal structures that allow people, that prepares people. Once a leader resigns, it becomes a free-for-all.
Yep.
Let's look at succession planning. I know it's quite a hot new term, and even in the corporate world, when you say to a CEO or a manager, okay, we need to identify somebody who will take your place when you go, when you retire, it's kind of like a new thing. And in Jamaica, it looks like some people are afraid of it. They think they're going to be there forever, or afraid to say that I may have to leave one day. So what is the process of succession planning? How do you identify the gaps in leadership and who is going to take over?
It's not so much gaps in leadership, it's just the fact that you can't lead forever. And if you want an organization to survive and to be sustainable and to be effective in the future, you have to put structures in place to say we are going to always recruit on merit. We're always going to recruit people with integrity and competence. And also loyalty. People are loyal to the organization and its mission. That is very important. But beyond that, you also need to recruit people who have the integrity and the competence. So for example, what I would really like to see is that the major political parties, say for the leadership race, 20% of the leadership race for major political parties, 20% women, 20% young people. And so when you institutionalize it, every year when you put up a slate for the deputy leaders or the vice president, depending on the party that you're talking about, you do have a cadre of young people, of women that are in place. And it's not just that it should be institutionalized. You actually need people to mentor the younger people, to guide them. You need people from the private sector to call up even the president to mentor young leaders in politics. You need to send them away to do short courses. In leadership, you need to have them understudy successful leaders throughout the society. And a successful leader can be in church, it can be in a school, it can be in a private sector company. So I don't think the political parties are serious about succession planning.
Well, I don't know how far you can take us back, Donald Sangster. I don't know how far you can take us, Bruce Golding, to Prime Minister Holness. And, are they not grooming them? Or is it that we don't know that, looking at if Peter Phillips, whatever happens now, who would he not have identified somebody in case he loses, wins, whatever happens?
It's not for the leader to identify someone. That's authoritarian, and that's what we tend to do. We always expect that when a leader is leaving, you anoint someone. That's not a democracy. So if you put structures in place and you're recruiting talented young people and talented tier two leaders, people with professional integrity and competence. The leader wouldn't have to be identifying anyone, just allow the democratic process to take place, and all those who were being prepared and who proved themselves to be tier two leadership could now just enter a leadership contest without the leader anointing anyone or pointing to anyone. If you look, if you look up to the 1980s, 70s and 80s, you had a deputy prime minister. Since the 70s and 80s, the prime minister, he or she, prime minister generally have not selected a deputy prime minister. If you notice, when the prime minister travels overseas, he leaves someone in charge of government, but it's never usually the same person. And that is done so that he or she doesn't give signal that he or she is saying X or Y is my successor. Good, but the parties need to put formal structures in place that recruit younger people and prepare them for leadership in the future.
Yeah, but so if I'm the leader of a political party, and Empress is in the party, and I like Empress, and I say, boy, I want Empress to take over from me. What kind of structure are you talking about? That at the end of the day, everyone will say, yeah, man, Empress must be the person. What kind of structure will do that?
It is not your place to say who you are. You're not the party. The only way you can do it, unless you are the political party. What I'm arguing for is that the political parties, the major ones, change their constitution so they have a certain amount, 30% of young people, even distributed across gender. So you change your party structure that. So when the PNP is voting for vice president, right, every year, right, and choosing the party leader and vice president, that 30% of talented young people and the party goes across the country to recruit through its youth structure. The JLP2, when it's nominating the party leader and the deputy leaders, that 30% of the slots are for young people, and the party would have gone through its youth arm throughout the country, consult within the party, outside of the party, in private sector, just a wide consultation. And these young people offer themselves up in the regular run-of-the-mill in terms of the deputy leadership and the vice president for the People's National Party. And then they are mentored by the senior people in the party.
Yeah, but Professor, does it not come down to who the people like? I mean, you said 30%.
Yes, it comes down to that, but you give the people a broad slate.
So what you're saying is to in the party's constitution, you would rather see a wide range of representation of the country, from the young, the wise, and the in-between.
Yes, but I'm arguing specifically for 30% of the deputy leader slots, vice presidential slots in the PNP, deputy leader slots in the JLP to be young people. Mm-hmm. But this recruitment now about people are going to offer themselves up should come from widespread consultation throughout the parties and throughout the country, so that the best and most competent tier two leadership can come forward and offer themselves up. Right, some might not win, but at least the delegates will have a larger pool from which to draw.
Okay, well, I guess it's important now for you to tell me what you think. You saw the candidates that have presented themselves from both parties. How do you feel about the current blend of both there are independents there, so I don't want to leave those.
When you say blend, exactly what are you asking?
The 30%. What is the ratio of young people and women in the current candidates that we have seen put forward for this election coming up?
I have not looked at the current slate in terms of the amount of women versus say what has been there in the past, as well as the amount of young people. And I know it's a bias. It's a bias that I carried me now for a long time, that I think is not going to be any different from the past. Because I have not heard the political parties forcefully say, for this election, we're going to ensure that 40% of our candidates are women, and that 60% of that 40 are going to be young people.
You know, as a psychologist, we have to go, but as a social psychologist, I would love to hear your opinion on this one. Do you think women make better leaders at the head of political administration?
Well, women, based on their gender, bring certain things to leadership.
Thank you.
And internationally, what the side of the chair is saying, women tend not to go to war. They tend to be less confrontational with opponents, inside and outside the country. So that's just one. There are many other things that we'd have to talk about at another time. But the one thing we know, women leaders tend not to go to war.
Yep. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Prof.
Only to say that I think we were talking about the ratio with women, and I think I heard the Prime Minister say, and I think it's right, that he has 30% women running on his slate, because I think they have 18 women out of 63, which makes it about 30%.
But that needs to be established, entrenched.
Yeah. So you're talking about quotas here.
Yes, that's it. That's exactly the word. And it's entrenched, and it doesn't fluctuate. So when Prime Minister Holness goes, it's still that amount.
Some people
more.
might think that it should be the best person, whether that be female or male. How do you respond to that?
Yes, quotas doesn't say you can't have the best persons. It's just that when you have the quota, you're ensuring that underrepresented and people who tend to be marginalized are represented.
Thanks a lot, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Prof. As you know, people are going to be having a lot of conversations on Smile over the next few weeks as we get ready for our general election. And it's good to hear from everybody, Jamaican politics, leadership succession, the history, the now, and what everybody is saying. So thank you, Dr. Christopher Charles, Professor of Political and Social Psychology at the UWI Mona, for joining us for that conversation.